Hello and welcome. I'm here with Dr. Erica, and we are going to do a comfort measures for labor workshop for you today. I'm going to go ahead and share our screen so we can get started, and then we'll have some time a little bit later to actually practice some of these techniques. Okay. So we are part of the San Antonio Family Support Collective, and that is just a bunch of different healthcare or wellness workers, health and wellness workers, and we are coming together to just be able to serve you guys in this weird time that we're living in right now. We all have different gifts and strengths and things that we've devoted our work to, and so we want to come together with those things. And I am Megan. I am a doula and childbirth educator, and I own Rooted Birth. We are a doula collective here in San Antonio, so there's quite a few of us that are part of our group. I am a certified birth doula, and I teach birth classes, and I just love working with families as you guys are growing your family and just moving into this like different time. It's totally, even if it's your first baby or your fifth baby, like it's different every single time. So I love this work.
I'm Dr. Erica, and so I am a doctor of chiropractic here at Empowered Chiropractic in San Antonio. And so I am a mama also. That's my family there. Me and my husband, our 3 kids, and now I'm expecting our 4th next month. And so I am, again, as I said, a chiropractor. Our family practice focuses on perinatal care. And so that is taking care of anybody that is on the journey of having a baby. And so in addition to that, we do pediatric care. And then I am a retired birth doula. And so I still work quite a bit with all of our families in helping them prepare for labor and delivery, and just kind of that journey of pregnancy and then even into the postpartum period.
Awesome. And today we're going to do some different comfort measures for labor. We're going to talk about finding a rhythm in labor and how to kind of settle in and surrender your body to the process. We're going to talk about the environment and how to set up a calm environment at home, but also once you move to your place of birth, if it's not your home, how do you bring that with you? And then we're also going to talk about the role of movement in labor.
Okay, so going into this part, finding your rhythm. So something that is very important during all of this is that you trust the process. Your body was designed to do this. And so and we mentioned this in our last video, but just as your body knows how to breathe and your heart knows how to pump, your body knows how to give birth also, especially if you give it the opportunity to. And so something we want you to remember is that your contractions are not stronger than you because your body is actually creating those. It's all working with you in an effort to bring you closer to meeting your baby. And then the mindset. So the mindset that you go into labor with, or the mindset that you have throughout pregnancy, is very important. So if you are somebody who is wanting an unmedicated birth, for example, then having that mindset that each of those contractions is part of you and that it's not something that you aren't able to get through, you will be able to do it. So you just have to make sure that you are going in this with a positive mindset and an open mind. So when I say that, I mean that every birth is different. And so we want to make sure that you know that even if you have delivered before and maybe things didn't go quite as planned, that doesn't mean that that is going to be the result or outcome with the next birth. And so going into this with an open mind, knowing that things have the possibility to change, and then having an idea and a plan of what you can do if they change, so that you aren't really setting yourself up for failure or for, what's the word I'm looking for disappointment. So as long as you are aware of all of the options, all of the possibilities, then you should do pretty well throughout your delivery.
Awesome. And I love it when I see clients using affirmations during their labor. I think that our self-talk, the way that we are going through things in our head and the way we're kind of running through the process of labor and thinking about all this stuff, I think it plays a big role in how we cope in labor. You can look on Pinterest or really anywhere on the internet and just Google affirmations for labor, and you'll find lists after list. I think what's really important about those is to just read through all of them and spend time, like check off the ones that you like and you think you might want to use that in labor. Definitely cross off the ones that you're like, I don't relate to that at all. And then I think sometimes we hear an affirmation and we react like kind of viscerally to it. And I think that is something to pay really good attention to as well. That could be something that you're not believing about yourself, that maybe you're not believing your body is strong enough to do this, or whatever the affirmation is that makes you feel some kind of way. I think it's good to spend time with those and start practicing those more and trust your body and trust your baby that this process can work for you. I think those can be the most revealing affirmations for us. And then I want to talk about the 3 C's of labor. These are calm, confident, and cope. And I think this sort of is this like never ending cycle when you're in labor. So when you are feeling really calm, then you're confident in your abilities to birth this baby. And when you're feeling confident in your abilities, then you're coping really well. If one piece of this cycle is missing, I think it becomes like you just kind of lose it. You start to feel like you're floundering and you're not coping with labor well. I think this is really good for partners to pay attention to because you know your partner better than anyone else. So if you notice that they're just struggling with labor or really feeling ungrounded, look at the situation and think, what is missing here and what can I bring? So if like maybe everything was going well at home, and then you've decided to get in the car and drive to the hospital, labor tends to keep going as that stuff happens, and it gets really stressful. And you move to the hospital, and then nurses are trying to check you in and start an IV and check your cervix, all these things, and you lose this like calm piece of the puzzle. And then when that's gone, moms usually start to feel less confident in their abilities, and then they're not coping well with the labor anymore until that calm piece can come back in and everything's working well together again. So try to look through those things and see what's missing and what can I bring back to this equation.
So here we want to talk about the environment. And so essentially, there may be many of you who are planning to deliver at home or at a birth center, and that can look very different from delivering at the hospital. So what we are hoping is that wherever you are delivering, that your environment is going to make you feel safe and secure, because that is a very important key to progressing in labor. If you are not feeling safe, you're not feeling secure, your body can shut down and you can stall out in labor. And unfortunately, that can lead to extra interventions that maybe we are trying to avoid. So some things that you can do, if you are planning on delivering outside of your home, when it comes to packing your bags, you can pack 2 bags. So this is going to be really helpful. You would pack a bag for labor, and then you would also pack a bag for the postpartum period so that you don't need to bring any non-essential items in with you that aren't needed right in the moment. So some things that you could pack for your labor bag are going to be things like a rebozo, which you can see here in this image. They're using that, it looks like a reddish colored cloth around the mother's belly. And we'll show you how to use that later. You could also pack things like a fan. When you're in labor, you go through a lot of fluctuations with everything, but especially your temperature. So there may be times when you're feeling really hot, and then moments when you're feeling cold. And so it's helpful to have a fan or like some cloths that you could use to just put in some cool water to apply to the forehead or the chest or the back, wherever it's needed, so that your partner can help cool you down. And then if you are feeling cold after that, then you have blankets there that you can apply. Then some other things, essential oils can be really helpful. And so if that is something that you have access to, great. Lavender, which is here. I don't know if you can see that. But lavender is a great one, peppermint, and Clary Sage. And so lavender is going to help with some of the emotional stuff, but kind of keeping you calm and helping you to come back to a focused mental state. Peppermint is going to be really helpful if you are having any nausea. But there is also times that if, say, baby is breech, or you find out baby is breech, some people have used that to apply to the top of the belly, and because it's such a strong oil, sometimes it will cause baby to turn. And then Clary Sage. Clary Sage is going to be really helpful if you're having contractions, but maybe they're not right where you want them to be, or if you are beginning to stall out because of whatever stress. Applying Clary Sage can be really helpful. Where you would apply these oils typically is like the palms of your hands, bottoms of your feet. You do want to make sure, a lot of these oils you can get in a grocery store, but if at all possible, I would try to get a good quality oil. So I use doTERRA, but there are several other brands out there that you could look into, and you can always message us if you have questions. In addition to those things, a really comfortable pillow, whatever pillow that you love. A tennis ball can be really helpful for some of the techniques that we're going to show you later on. If you want some music, maybe a little speaker that you could set your phone or your tablet or laptop up with, so that you have a playlist of nice music that you want. But those are just kind of some of the important things that would be helpful to pack for that labor bag. For the postpartum bag, you're going to want some things that are going to kind of make you comfy again. So maybe it's, your favorite pair of socks, or again, some of those oils maybe to help you balance out what the emotions that you're feeling in that postpartum period. Maybe it's a robe, or something just comfortable, your own pajamas that you can wear in your during that postpartum period. Okay.
So, sorry, we're moving into kind of the movement portion of our time together. Movement is so important in labor. As you move, your body shifts and it makes room for your baby. And baby has such a journey to make through the pelvis. They start out very high, and then they really have to move and shift and follow their intuition and find the spaces where they can fit. So you have to trust that your body is telling you what positions you need to be in labor. It's not always going to look just like the movies or shows that you've watched, where you're just going through labor, just laying on your back. It's constantly changing. So you need to be always moving, and baby's going to go where there's as much space as possible. Movement is also a really great coping mechanism when in labor. The movements that we're going to teach you are very strategic. They help to open the pelvis. They help to kind of encourage baby to move and change their position. And then they also can give you a sense of that you're making progress. So when you tell yourself, okay, I know that it's good to be in a hands and knees position or a lunge position, you can say, I'm going to do this for the next 3 contractions. So you hold that position for 3 contractions, then you try it on the other side. So it gives you really manageable chunks of labor versus I could be doing this for 15 more hours. When you're taking it a little bit at a time, it's a lot easier to cope with. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing our screen for a minute, and we're going to show you some of these comfort techniques and teach you a little bit about how your body works.
Okay, so I'm going to bring out some models. So this is my model of a pelvis, what your pelvis looks like. And so here you're going to be able to see all of the bony structure. You can also see some of the external genitalia here. I'm going to remove that bit so that you can see some of the muscles as well. So something important to kind of understand is position of baby when you are delivering. And so some of these techniques actually are going to help with positioning of baby as well. So ideally, we want your baby, let's get baby into position, to be in this position as it is getting ready to be born. And so what that means is your baby's back, and ideally the back left side of its head is towards the front of your body, okay? And so I'm gonna put baby down here so that we can talk a little bit more about the pelvis. These areas here are your hip bones or your ilium. I'm going to show you the back. So on this back side, you can see that we have, again, these hip bones, but then you can see this triangular bone here in the center. This is your sacrum or your tailbone. So some of these techniques that we're going to go over in a little bit are going to help you understand how these move and what is going to be best at different stages of labor so that you can deliver your baby with hopefully more ease. Something else that we're going to talk about is the inlet versus the outlet of the pelvis. So this opening up here, where you would see there, that's where baby would descend through first. That's the inlet of the pelvis. And so in earlier stages, we're trying to get baby to move down and descend into the pelvis so that baby can eventually be born. Down here is the outlet of the pelvis, where you would have the vaginal opening, okay? And so with all of this, some of the techniques we're going to show you are going to be to give a squeeze here at the top so that baby can continue to move down and the bottom of your pelvis can open up. The others are going to be pressing on the sacrum here, that triangular bone again, so that we can make sure that this is moving. If you're looking at it from the side, it should hinge or pivot back and forth like this all the time, really. But we want to especially make sure that it is free and movable while you are delivering your baby. So we'll get into all of that. We'll also talk a little bit about the pelvic floor muscles.
Perfect. Okay, so when we're moving into labor, we start with early labor, and we want to just give some kind of caveats for these different phases of labor. But when you're in early labor, typically this is when contractions are still like pretty far apart. You still have lots of time in between to rest. But when you are feeling those contractions, you know that they're actually happening. It can feel a lot like menstrual cramps. It can feel like it's sort of wrapping from your back to your front or your front to your back. It can feel like maybe you need to have a bowel movement, so you keep going to the bathroom and then realize, oh, I don't actually need to go. That a lot of times, those are early labor contractions. During this time, we want to encourage you to rest. That's the main thing. So a lot of times we've been waiting for these babies for so long, and then we get so excited because, oh my gosh, I'm having contractions. And so we want to just jump into like, let's just do the thing. Let's do the labor. So you start like trying to go for a 5-mile walk when you haven't really been doing that, or go on a big hike or whatever. You want to try to get labor going. But we really want to encourage you in this time to rest. So if it's in the day, try to distract yourself. Maybe lay around and watch movies or watch TV. You can get into different positions, but try and let your body rest and save up energy. It's also really important to be nourishing yourself well during this time. So eat snacks, eat good meals. Think about what's really going to feed your body. A lot of times you do start to feel like, oh, I don't think I want to eat that. So kind of listen to your intuition there too, and then hydrate really, really well. Especially if you're going to the hospital, a lot of times once you get there, you don't really have options for lots of things to eat. So make sure that you're doing that well at home. And then if it's nighttime, try to sleep. So in between, contractions might wake you up. They might be painful enough that you cannot stay asleep, but try to sleep in between. That is going to refresh your body enough for this marathon of labor. And whether your labor ends up being super, super long or average or fairly short, you still need that early time to let your body build up energy to go forward with that.
Yes. One thing I think that we didn't talk about when we were going over everything is that something else that people sometimes tend to do, especially if it's first baby, is kind of announce, like labor starting or it's time, baby's coming. And unfortunately, that can actually even kind of hinder you or slow you down, because in early labor, you still sometimes have a long way to go. And so, of course, everybody else is excited about baby coming too. And so then you may find that you're getting, all of these messages or people saying, where are you? How's it going? Is baby here yet? Mm-hmm. And so it's even helpful during this time to just kind of don't tell people, maybe your birth team, of course, But just kind of still go about your daily life, do your thing. Okay, so going into active labor, then, well, I guess we didn't really show, but like the partner swing for early labor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes,
So we'll just show you something that's really helpful if you're not in that resting stage or staying busy stage and you're starting to kind of need some coping techniques. We're going to start to show you some of those. So in that earlier phase of labor, and kind of throughout, it's going to be really helpful to, again, find your rhythm like we mentioned earlier. So that includes movement. And so something that can be really helpful during the earlier stages is to, one, sway your hips, okay? Because, again, moving your hips is going to be really helpful for helping baby to descend into the pelvis, but it also kind of helps you get through those contractions. These are some of the lighter ones. They can be intense for some people, but movement is going to make sure that everything is staying mobile and that baby is able to move down. You have gravity helping you right here. Something else that you can do is use a ball. So a birth ball or a yoga ball, but sitting on it, and ideally here, you want your hips to be at 90 degrees, so you don't want to be like sinking down, and you want your knees to be at 90 degrees. But here you can do circles, you can do figure eights, you can do a multitude of things. You can get on hands and knees and rest on the ball so that you're still able to move, but you're still kind of resting as well.
You can also be, when you're using the ball, you can also be like on your knees if you're just tired of standing or sitting. So there's different positions, but you can be on your knees and resting on the ball and still able to like move back and forth like this and move your hips side to side and front and back. And sometimes being in positions where your belly is sort of leaning forward can help baby twist and start to move into the pelvis.
Yeah, especially if baby has been maybe facing out in the opposite direction. So say that instead of baby being, facing your back here like we would like, maybe they were facing out. That hands and knees position is really helpful just for, again, helping gravity and helping the heavier part of your baby to spin around. So going into the active labor section here, with active labor, your contractions are beginning to develop a little bit more of a pattern. And so with this, we know that you're kind of getting closer, okay? So things become a little bit more intense typically here. And so we're going to give you some techniques that you can kind of start there.
Yes. So the first thing is that you're going to want to start paying attention to your breathing. So this is a huge coping technique, and you really want to, like what you see in the movies and what you see on TV is going to be a lot of the like, ooh, like that kind of stuff. And that's not the breathing that you need to do. You need to just be listening to your body and breathe when your body tells you to breathe. And then try to think about taking big, deep breaths and allowing that breath to move all the way into your abdomen, holding it there for a bit, and then letting it move back out. So just think about like, I need to get this oxygen all the way to my baby and then exhale it all the way back out. I think a really good pattern is when you feel a contraction building, take a big, deep breath at the beginning, breathe normally through the contraction, however you need to breathe to cope with it. And then at the end, take another big, deep breath. Let that contraction go. That one's done. You did it. And then take a big drink of water. And that's going to help you stay hydrated, but also just well oxygenated.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to show you some of these techniques. So we're going to move back here a little bit. Let me move this a little closer for now, so that they can see. Let's help this down a bit. So here we're going to go into a partner-assisted squat. So we're going to get nice and cozy. Your partner ideally is going to be sitting on a chair or a couch or whatever it is. We're going to go into a deep squat here, okay? So feet apart, knees apart, and you're going to lean back into them, okay? And so here, what you're doing is you're allowing your belly to come in towards you because you're kind of tucking your pelvis down underneath so that baby is closer to you and so that all of these contractions are more effective. The other thing that you're doing is in this squat, you're opening up that bottom part of your pelvis. You're also allowing that pelvic floor to relax. So if any of you have ever heard of a squatty potty, that is something that puts you in the best position when you're having a bowel movement so that your pelvic floor is relaxing and you can have that movement with ease. Same thing when you're having a baby. And so in this position, again, it's just going to help open things up. You have your partner here to support you so you're not getting too tired, but you could also do this like, you could also do this down on the floor if you wanted to. So having your knees like that, kind of so that you're still in that position. You could get into that squat again here and lean on something else, depending on what feels comfortable to you.
Perfect. We also, doulas love this, and clients love this as well, but this is the double hip squeeze, and Dr. Erica is going to show you that on me. So I'm going to lean, and a lot of times you do this like maybe you're leaning up against a wall, or you're leaning over your bed, or maybe you put the ball next to the bed and sit. So you can do this in a lot of different positions, anytime that you can access the hips.
So in this active portion of labor, something that is really helpful again is this double hip squeeze. And so I'm going to show you something on the pelvic model real quick. So there are two different ways to do this. One is that you're pressing kind of on the crest here of these hip bones. What that is going to do, you could imagine pushing in here, it's going to allow this bottom area to open up more, wider. And so that can be really helpful for, again, helping baby to descend further. The other thing that I tend to do, sorry, I'm out of breath here. The other thing that I tend to do is to press in these little grooves areas. So you can see how they kind of sink in here, and you're gonna find those on yourself. So in like the meaty portion of the glutes. And so using the heel of the hand, it's really nice if you sit it right in there on both sides and give a squeeze. That's going to allow these hips to move back a little bit over the sacrum so that your sacrum again can move. So I'm going to show you that. So the first one, again, is a little bit further out, but giving those hips a squeeze. Partners, you're always going to want to check in with your birthing person and make sure that you're not doing something that's inflicting more pain on them. We want all of these things to bring them comfort. So again, here to squeeze to allow baby to descend further into the pelvis, or going into that upper glute area on the back and giving a squeeze in there. So you want them to feel nice and stable. So they can lean against a chair, they could get on the chair like this, or they could get on a couch or whatever it is. If they're in the hospital, hands and knees on the hospital bed with the back raised up and some pillows maybe to do that squeeze. And that will be really helpful. I'm like really out of breath.
Okay. We're going to move on to another technique. And Dr. Erica was talking about how, you know, when you're sitting in those squatting positions and you're leaning back, it gets baby closer to you. So when you're contracting and you have a pendulous abdomen, and so it hangs out kind of over your hips here, your bones, you want to get that baby closer into your body. So what can be really helpful is imagine like just your normal daily life, you kind of help hold your belly up because it's heavy and it feels nice to lift it off of those muscles and tendons there. When you lift and then press in at the same time, that's helping to align your baby with the pelvic outlet a little bit better. So when you're lifting and then tuck your pelvis a little bit as well, this is called the abdominal lift and tuck, and you can do this through the entire contraction. I hesitate to call this a comfort measure because it does make the contractions actually a little bit more uncomfortable, but that's because they are working so much better for you. So instead of your uterus having to do all the work of pulling your belly in and also pushing the baby down, you're doing half of the work for it, and it can do all of the power from the fundus, from the top of the uterus, can push just straight down on baby. That makes more pressure on your cervix, which causes more contractions. And then we also like to do something called Rebozo Sifting, and we're going to show that to you. But basically what this is using, if you don't have a rebozo, you can use a scarf or a cloth of some kind, or maybe a bed sheet that you fold up. It just needs to be something that's not super stretchy. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the weight of the belly, and then we're just going to kind of jiggle baby a little bit. So it's not like a wax on, wax off car wash kind of thing, but you're actually lifting the belly and then shifting and causing baby to kind of move. It also sort of forces mom to forget about her pelvic floor for a little while, to just let it relax, to let those abdominal muscles relax because you're the one that's holding it. And then baby can kind of wiggle into positions that are better for them. So we're going to show you how to do that. So you want to make sure when you put the rebozo or the sheet or whatever you're using on, that it goes all the way from under the breast, so the top of the belly, all the way underneath. And then you'll want to get in a hands and knees position. And you want to make sure all the rails here are nice and tight so you're applying pressure the same all the way around the belly. This is another good thing to check in. If this doesn't feel good, it's not time to do it. But you can do this even in early labor, even before labor begins, especially if you suspect that baby's not in a good position for labor. This can be really helpful. And in labor, if contractions are kind of start-stop, or they're not taking a good pattern where they're really getting closer together, there's some that are close and then some that are farther apart, that sort of makes us suspect that baby's not doing exactly what they need to be doing. So you can do this to sort of jiggle them and help them move into a different position. So what you'll do is have one hand on each side of the rebozo in the same spot. You will lift, do a gentle lift on the belly, so you're holding the weight of the belly. And then you'll just sort of slowly pull one arm up higher than the other. So that actually moves the abdomen. And then whenever you're done with that, you don't just let it drop down, you just slowly release, because you don't want all the weight of baby and belly and all that stuff to just sort of fall down. So you release that really gently. Then, so you could do this in between contractions, and then you're really close and able to apply counter pressure or do hip squeezes in this position. You can even just do like massage here. So there's a lot that you have available to you when mom is in this position.
Something else for the laboring person is to try not to help. In this position, you're wanting to relax as much as possible, so you are letting those muscles relax. Mm-hmm. You're letting your belly hang, letting your back relax, so you're not really fighting or working against your partner. The other thing that we wanted to mention during this active labor period is that it is going to be helpful for your partner to have some cues. So these are things to discuss before you're in labor, definitely now, so that when you are in labor, they can gently tell you, or even without words, just apply some light pressure to your shoulders to help you relax them. When we're feeling any sort of discomfort or pain, we tend to kind of like tense up, pull your shoulders up to your ears, and kind of like try and hang on. But it's actually going to be a lot more beneficial for you to relax and surrender to the process. So if you're able to just relax your shoulders, so again, that light pressure, or maybe have your partner help you relax your jaw if you're clenching. So just to take some light, the pads of the fingertips, and just do a gentle massage over the jaw to remind you to relax. Maybe a thumb on the forehead, or just some gentle outward motions to help you relax your face. Something that's really important to understand is that the mouth and the jaw are very closely physiologically tied in with the perineum, or your pelvic floor. And so if you're holding a lot of tension up here in your jaw, that tension is going to translate down into your pelvic floor as well. And we don't want that during labor. We want your pelvic floor to relax so that baby can descend and again be born.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, so that's sort of a lot of our options for active labor. Again, you need to do what feels comfortable for you during this time. Active labor is when it's going to start kind of ramping up and definitely feeling more uncomfortable during the contractions, and you will have a hard time vocalizing what you need. And so moving into these positions on your own, and then try as much as you can to help your partner know like that feels great or that doesn't feel great. Sometimes this is where you get to the point of you're like, don't talk to me anymore. That's also okay. No one's gonna have their feelings hurt. We can talk about it later. It's all gonna be okay. But right now we're all focused on the pregnant person and the person who's in labor. And so whatever they need at that time is what we're doing. It's also a good time to check in with that calm, confident cope. So as you're having to move more inward to cope with the contractions, you have a hard time thinking like, what do I need? And like you get to a point where you just don't even know what you need or what you want anymore. So it's really good for partners to try and anticipate those needs as much as possible. It feels like a lot of pressure, but just your partner better than anyone else. And so being that calm, supportive presence does a lot in terms of the mental space of the person who's in labor. So moving on.
So moving into the next stage is transition. And so transition means that exactly what it sounds like. It is time to have baby. And so at this stage, you are getting close to that 10 centimeters or you're already there. And so at this point, this is typically when a expecting person, laboring person is going to say, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too much. I can't do it. But something that is encouraging is to tell them, like, you're already doing it. If you've already gotten this far, we're very close to meeting baby. And so let's kind of continue and try to go on, unless they tell you to be quiet. Then just do as much to support them as you can. But if this is you, again, remember that mindset that we had been practicing during pregnancy or leading up to birth, of knowing, okay, I'm at the point of no return, essentially, and we're going to go through with this. And so we're going to give you some other techniques that really help with this increased, the intensity, really, of labor at this point. So again, you can always remember to do that gentle press down of your laboring person's shoulders. You can help with the forehead, the cheeks, the jaw, but then also it's just kind of really supporting them through this because this is a more intense time. Yeah. Let me see. I just want to look. There was something else. Oh, pushing positions. So for pushing positions, we want to also let you know that you are not confined to the bed. Unless, of course, you've had an epidural, then that kind of changes things for you. But with pushing positions, you don't have to be stuck in the laying on your back, because remember we talked about how the pelvis moves. So if at all you can get into a different position, squatting, hands and knees, leaning against the back of the bed, any of that type of stuff, standing up and walking around or moving, all of that is going to be really helpful for just allowing your body to continue doing what it's doing. So now we're going to go into the first technique for this section, which typically when you get to transition, that hip squeeze might not feel so good anymore. And so typically for clients, something that I would have switched to is sacral pressure. And so I'll show you what that is. So if you remember this bone right here that is shaped like a triangle is your sacrum, okay? And so what we're going to do for this part is we're going to be pressing on the upper portion. Again, you're going to use that heel of your hand here to press up and in there, because that's going to allow this bone to pivot and to open up at the bottom, because what we're wanting to do is make more space down here for baby to be born. So I'm going to demonstrate that on Megan. So in this position, we would want mom to relax her back, good, and then you can feel the hip bones. So these little bony parts that stick out on the back, you can see there, you're gonna go right in between those. So you're gonna find those spots, go right in the center. You can then press in here. Sometimes mom will say, that hurts, stop, and you stop. Sometimes they'll say, I need more pressure. And so, for example, with my last delivery, I needed a lot of pressure. Unfortunately, it was Christmas Eve and all of my chiropractors were gone. And so I needed all of the pressure here. And so we're doing a lot of pressure right there. If it's getting to be too much for the partner that's helping, then having something like a tennis ball is going to be really helpful to just kind of save your wrists, save your hands, it allows that pressure, but you don't have to use so much of it yourself.
Right. And then I want to talk a little bit about the perineum at this point. So a lot of times the fear here that's kind of holding you back from moving through this last part of labor is like, oh crap, this is really going to hurt. And as baby is crowning, you've heard about the ring of fire, you've read about tearing. So we do want to talk a little bit about what you can do to care for your perineum during this time. So as baby is moving down and really stretching your perineum, so that skin between your vagina and your anus, everything's kind of stretching there. There's a lot of pressure. It feels like you have to poop. That's that I need to push feeling. But then you're kind of at this like rock in a hard place of like, oh, you just have to do it. You just have to release and believe that your body's going to do what it needs to do. So as baby's coming and these tissues are really stretched to their fullest, that's when you feel that ring of fire feeling. What we want to encourage you to do here is to slow down. I think sometimes we can get into this mindset of like, oh, I gotta get past this. So you just gather every little bit of strength you have left and like push like there's no tomorrow. And what we need is for those tissues to be able to stretch more slowly. So stopping the pushing, just maybe letting your uterus push all on its own. Did you know it does that? You don't even have to push with it sometimes. So what that does is it just budges baby down by little bits. And it allows those tissues to stretch a little bit more slowly. So you can use those horse lips, if you've heard of those in labor, where you just kind of blow the air out of your lips to keep from pushing. You can take big, big, deep breaths and just try to kind of, this is the only part where I'm like, go against what your body says, because it sort of does feel like just go as hard as you can to get that baby out. Once baby's head is through, it's much easier. The shoulders are much easier and the body just sort of slides out. So it's really the head portion that's the hardest on the pushing there. The other thing that helps with those perineal tissues, with protecting them and helping them to stretch better, is to get them warm and wet. So when you use a warm, wet compress on there, that just warms up all of the tissues and it helps them to be able to stretch a little bit farther before they tear. Ultimately, if you're going to tear, it will happen and it's not the end of the world. And it's much better to still slow things down and allow those tissues to stretch more. And that will help prevent some of that tearing. The other thing I wanted to say that I didn't say earlier when we were talking about how important movement is that even if you do have an epidural throughout your labor process, it's still so important to be moving. So sitting in positions where you raise the back of the bed and you're sort of sitting up, and maybe you can put your feet together like like you're doing yoga, like a butterfly sit, or you put one leg up on a peanut ball and then switch to the other leg. That's really helpful for just changing the position of the pelvis and allowing baby to have more room. Also, laying on your side and laying kind of all the way over, almost onto your belly, and then having that top hip swing over a ball or a stack of pillows. That helps baby to be able to shift and descend much better. And then you'll want to do that obviously on the other side as well. The cervix does not always dilate evenly. So you want to move into different positions so baby's head can put different amounts of pressure all the way around the cervix. So you don't end up with, a lip that doesn't really want to get out of the way, something like that. So I just wanted to talk about that. And you do have so many options still for movement, even though you have an epidural in place. Ultimately, a really good epidural takes away like 75 to 80% of the pain. And you can still feel the intensity of the contractions during the epidural, not the intensity, but the pressure. You can still feel the pressure. So that's going to help with knowing like, I'm having a contraction right now. I should push through this contraction right now. So you can still kind of feel the sensations of your body without the intensity of, like the full intensity of contractions. Right. And if you do have an epidural like that, where you haven't, pushed the button a bunch of times or whatever, so it's fairly light, then you still might be able to move your own legs or flip over in the bed. And like Erica was saying, having the back kind of up so you can lean up against pillows and like be on your knees, and you can even move sort of into a squat. You have more range of movement available to you the lighter the epidural is.
Right. Something else that I wanted to let people know, another use for the Rebozo or sheath or whatever it is, if you did take this with you to the hospital or wherever you are, is if you use that and say you had a squat bar on your bed, you could then utilize your Rebozo by, knotting it up over the bar and having something to pull on while you're pushing. So if you're on your back and legs are up, you can use that to push so that you're hopefully really focusing the push in the right spot. And then I think one other thing that I wanted to just say is when we were talking about the tearing. So of course nobody wants to tear. It's not ideal, but I wanted to say that tearing is actually going to be much better than an episiotomy. So an episiotomy is where your provider would cut the tissue so that baby could be born more effectively. But if you think of a piece of paper, for example, if you took a piece of paper and tore it, you're going to have some jagged edges. And so those jagged edges more easily can be put back together. Same with your body. If you unfortunately happen to tear and have jagged edges, you're going to heal much better than if you had been cut, because it's hard to put two very clean edges back together. So those are just kind of some other little tips that I wanted to share with you.
Definitely.
But then going into birth, okay, you have your baby. Baby's born, you did the hard work. That's
Good
great.
job.
Congratulations. Typically, baby is going to be born and placed on your chest or your abdomen as long as everything is good. Hopefully, you're allowed to delay cord clamping because that's going to be really helpful for baby. But after baby is born, you're not quite finished. You still have to deliver your placenta. And so something that can be helpful if, say, it's taking a little longer for your placenta to deliver, allowing your baby to breastfeed, that's going to help your uterus to continue to contract, to help that placenta deliver. But ultimately, it could take, if you're allowing this to happen on its own, like 30 minutes for your placenta to be born. And so with this, you do want to remember, again, those breathing techniques, because it's just going to be kind of like early labor. If baby is nursing, that's going to intensify those contractions a bit more as well, so that your placenta can be delivered. But those are all good things. We do need the placenta to come out. Yes. And so with this, you're going to continue that breathing. We're hopefully going to refrain from anybody pulling on the umbilical cord and pulling your placenta out, because we want it to come out in one piece. We also want to make sure that your uterus is not being compromised. We don't want your uterus being pulled down, so that hopefully you don't have to worry about any issues of prolapse or anything like that. So I think that kind of covers that.
That covers all of our actual comfort techniques. I'm going to share my screen again so that we can just show you guys where to find us. This is a quote I love, screenshot or whatever you want to do, but it says that birth is not only about making babies, birth is about making mothers. Strong, competent, capable mothers who trust themselves and know their inner strength. The way that we birth definitely impacts the way that we move forward with our life in parenting. And I think that no matter how you want your birth to be, when you go into it feeling like you're the one calling the shots and you feel empowered and you feel like you've trusted your body and trusted the process, I think that that gives us trust going into motherhood. That's weird. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is just our Let's Connect slide. You can find me all over the place. I have a website, rooteddoula.com. You can call me and we can talk on the phone, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at rootedbirth, SATX. And then again, my business is called Rooted Birth, and we have birth doula services. So right now we're working a lot virtually, but also we are still attending some births in person, and just depending on the family and on the situation. So your birth doula, you can think of them as a labor expert and cheerleader that you have right at your fingertips. So even if they can't be with you in person, you still have someone that you can lean on and ask lots of questions to throughout your whole pregnancy and labor. And then we have postpartum doula services where someone comes to your house and they help you get some sleep, and they just help you create rhythms in your home and give you the tools to continue those things when they're not there with you anymore. And then we also offer lots of other things like birth classes, hypnobirthing, placenta encapsulation, massage. So you can find all of these services on our website.
And this is my Let's Connect page here. So you can, again, find all of my contact information here from our website down to our Instagram. I will say we are most active on Facebook and Instagram. We don't make a whole lot of changes to the website, but it does have a lot of kind of facts and information there that you may be wondering about whether or not chiropractic is for you. And so then I'll go to my next page. So here, these are the different services that we offer. And so, like I said, we do family care. So we take care of the whole family, moms, dads, kids. And then we also, our focus here really is perinatal chiropractic. And so what that means is for somebody maybe who has experienced loss, unfortunately, and is trying to conceive, somebody who maybe has not yet been able to conceive, anybody on the pregnancy journey, and then of course in that postpartum period, because although we spend a lot of time focusing on pregnancy and then on the actual delivery of your baby, the postpartum period is just as important, if not more important, because just like in that quote, not only are you birthing a baby, you are giving birth to a new self. You have been transformed into this new person. You have a different role in life now, one that maybe you have never experienced before. And so we want to support you through that. Support can go from, that emotional, mental side, but it can also go all the way into the physical side. And so there are a lot of changes that have happened. You went through a huge transition when you were pregnant and then delivered your baby, and you go through another transition right after delivery. And so we want to support you through that and make sure that you are doing well and that you're healthy and that everything is working properly. And then there's the pediatric side of things. So when a baby is born, when a baby is going through delivery, you have to imagine you're feeling that contraction of your uterus being squeezed, but your baby is also feeling all of that. So they're getting squished and squeezed. Hopefully they're in an ideal position. If they're not in any, they could be breached, they could have their legs up in the air, they could have feet down, coming out first. All of that is putting an impact on your baby's body. And so we want to make sure that your baby is doing well also. And so we do complimentary newborn exams for any of our existing patients. And if you're a new patient, you can still get your baby in. And so with that, we do a very gentle newborn exam and adjustment when necessary. But we just make sure that, again, everything is going well, that your baby is healthy and moving forward. If you're having issues with anything, you can always give us a call and we will talk with you and make sure that y'all are a good candidate for chiropractic care.
Definitely. And if you have any questions, I think this might be the end of our presentation, but if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. And we would love to help you. So you can message us on Facebook or Instagram or email us, and we'd love to answer your questions. I also do have a really great, very simple like PDF PowerPoint situation that shows you lots of different positions you can use during labor and birth. I think it's good to kind of have some things to look at, to reference back to. But also when you're in labor and you're just feeling like, I don't know what to do next, it's great to just have a little list of options in your toolbox. So I would love to send those along to you as well. So if you want to message me or email, I'd be happy to send those to you. We also have, with the San Antonio Family Support Collective, we have a YouTube page where you can view all of our other resources. We have tons of great things going on, not only for pregnancy and birth, but also perinatal mental health, fitness and breath and stretching and all of these things, and even stuff for kids as well. So it's really, really great. So you can find us there. And we're so happy you came to be with us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.